number that's the difference
It's
between?
$3 million shortfall.
3 million?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense why it's even.
So we'll keep updating any piece of your information about what you put in. We'll actually send you out this whole thing. It's quite lengthy. In fact, we'll do that before you even leave today. Okay. Tammy's response to one of our lobbyists to get them on it. So it's addressed to Chris, but we'll just make a copy of this and get that to you before. The next time is we're going to have Wendy talk about Arches Park. Remember when the last council meeting we talked about approving the budget. You approved the budget on a week go ahead for all of you to move forward on Arches Park. There's been a huge concern about the cost inflation. That is somewhat where it is. The costs are climbing just as fast as every shovel of the ground outside here. And the house is being built.
Planner, do you know that it was 5 times and that was changed to 1.25?
So big increase, but we'll actually be able to talk about all that cost change, and we're going to have Wendy do a short presentation on what you see the amenities.
I'll do that.
And we're also going to talk about other parks in the area. We're going to talk about a little more bigger vision about the whole area. And we're not going to move forward on this until I feel more collectively. I thought it was more important to have it come back to the work meeting, discuss it more openly for all of you instead of having me have all these phone conversations, single conversations, and get a consensus of what you want us to do to move forward. Yes, you approved the budget, we and I will not spend the money unless we have a firm direction.
Well, I think that was the
Okay,
direction.
so Gordon, Wendy, who's ever going to take the
I'll
next piece
start
of
off with
Arches
this.
Park? And this is actually going to bleed into some other areas around there because we're concerned about. I've heard from some of you that is there enough green station? Are we getting enough parks in this area for the residents in this area? So that's the kind of stuff we want to step through and see if there's a better solution to the problem that we have, or how we go forward. Because the price tags are starting to be what they are. And I'll see back on quite a while. Years.
All right, so just briefly, we were looking at Arches Park probably 2 years ago when we first put this in the budget. And that was something I had worked with, put in there. And the estimate came back, we were just going to do field, grass, everything, and then put just a regular top lot with
Berries.
bark. That was the intent. And so this thing kind of just stayed that way. We were waiting for money to come in. One of the things we talked to the council about is we were going to wait until new funding, new park revenue came in, and then we'd go forward with the building. Well, the money came in, so we started looking at the design. And as we started looking at it, one of the things that became important to us was we had just finished the Herriman, or the City Hall Park. We had looked at a number of different parks, and this park became iconic. It's a really great park. It's where a lot of people come, and we've started, when Wendy came on board, she started evaluating other parks where we have typical playground equipment, the normal things that you see, and we had noticed that there's a little bit lack of interest from our public in a lot of those parks. So building them that way just doesn't make a lot of sense. We may as well just go to a field and a pavilion because they get used and they're quickly, they just don't draw the crowds they used to. Back in my day, we were much more uneducated youth, and a stick would make us happy. So,
And a cardboard box.
in a cardboard box. If I had that, I'd be in heaven. But the level of the playgrounds, putting in the softball, and so we looked at a theme, and so Wendy put together a project that has a playground that includes the softball. Actually has two playgrounds. It has a rope, a hammock, slackline
area.
So it has a real spectacular slackline area, and then it has this playground. It has a river going through it. It has little animals like horned toad and rattlesnake kind of things all over. So it's kind of a really spectacular park. The playground with this softball, just that itself, is $500,000. So and then we also included a parking lot to go in with this park. So the grass has gone up, the price of that has gone up since the 2 years ago when we first looked at the estimated. But we can go back to the original park. The hard part is we've seen what a really great playground can look like, and then going back to it, that is difficult. That's once you take a really good drug, the other drugs just don't get you there. Go to the, yes. So, okay, never mind about the drug part. So what I guess I'm talking about is we felt that this would be a more iconic, this is what we try to be going for as we develop future parks.
But
we can get back to the, go ahead.
I want to just talk for a moment. When we talked about, Sherry brought some concerns about ropes, and rope in the playground industry is actually used quite a bit. Circular Springs has some great pyramid type rope pyramids. The kids get very interactive with ropes. There's also a 10-year warranty on the ropes, which was your question. What's long you do that? And 10 years is really about all you would expect out of any playground. You try to start replacing parts. So we felt like, we're pretty solid on that. If I get a 10-year warranty on anything in government wise, it's pretty good. This is a pretty good deal for us. So to create something that's going to be a little bit more longer lasting and safer is always our key. And I want to give a little more kudos to Wendy and her passion about creating something that's better than it used to be. I take you all the old playgrounds and they're pretty run down, and they don't create the creativity in a child's mind. And that's what we're trying to do with these spaces.
So we have a park that is spectacular. The cost to do this kind of a park is the $1.2 million increase that we have. This area generated $4 million in total park impact fee. So it's a general donor to the whole city, regardless if we do the $500,000 park or the 1.4.
I thought last council meeting they said it's brought in $2 million.
That was just the Anthem. Now, if you take the Miller, then it doubles it. So
Anthem is 2 and
So the whole area is around 4 million.
when you look at both
How
projects,
do you utilize this space?
The problem is this is a tiny space for gigantic area.
right, and so we can look at that. So the question we have for the council on this particular project is, we have a bid out. If we want to award this bid, we have a clock. I think the bid's only good for 30 days.
It's until August 30th.
August 30th, we have to award, otherwise we have to rebid again, which we can't. And we don't have to, we have all the choices before us. The council is not bound to anything other than after 30 days, we go out to bid again. If you choose to. So we would like to tell the contractor what our flavor is for this thing. One thing Brett had brought up on this particular part that we didn't put in there is we have in this stuff for restrooms, and we have a pad set out for it, but we did not include it. That's about $120,000. So if you directed us, we'd come back for a budget amendment of $120,000 to add to this park.
Do we have in our slide that shows the whole layout of the park? 'Cause
Not
I
on
think
this
that's a good
presentation.
update to show.
It's not on this presentation. I can pull it up.
It shows that we have a trail system around the whole park that we found that I put in trail system, this asphalt path or concrete path. Residents like to walk that way, their kids are playing, and where we have actually an athletic field there, that's why the need for the parking lot. But then I was saying, well, if we're gonna have a full-size field there and run sports out of there, we need a restroom. Because they're gonna find a restroom,
Yeah.
they're playing an hour game, they're gonna find a place to use the restroom, so.
So is there room in the 1.25 to do the restroom?
That would be an additional cost,
And what'd you say that amount was?
about 120, just depending on how many stalls we go, how big we
Our
go.
last bid on the last one we did was just pretty recent, was 100,000, so we're just saying we get, what makes us
Say this
all
all
here
the time, I'm in the
is
wrong business.
tell you one number and the number changes. What's that?
So I've said this a million times in these meetings, but I'm in the wrong business.
You should
Yeah.
go.
A trash can, and this is the low bid, trash can, $900 for a trash can.
Well, it's two.
I know that's installed
And that's actually stayed pretty consistent. I know is the trash can, we actually see kids, we roll them down, so they can't just roll them around. And they look a little more nicer than a barrel. And they have had ambiance to the park, and you'll see them around all of our parks. So it hasn't really changed that set. Two strap looking metal, powder coated. They you can lock the can or some kids can't pull the garbage out of it without having a key. So, and they will, if they can get access to it. But you look at those costs, yes, it's all about what branding and what you want to do as a city. We can definitely cheapen things down.
But this, $923 for one trash can, that's not just the trash can, that's including their cost to install
I'll
it,
say Mr. Shelby.
right?
When we
Yeah,
looked
this is
at
all
that,
installed in place.
I
And they
just
are-
wonder how much, I don't know, I think these guys get out of control.
Can we
Especially during times like this where they start adding on 10, 20%.
And it is a themed park, it's not just a plastic garbage can that's out there, like we have it at Rosecrest, in the pavilions at Rosecrest, for example. This
You
is
know-
definitely a nicer park.
So can they shave 10% off their
Yeah,
bid?
I say in our
And add
bids,
the
can we, well, I guess the question I'm gonna ask, and this is just general, and this is just the one that caught my attention to dig into it. I don't see labor on here anywhere, which is why I say I assume the cost of this material is including the cost to install it, et cetera.
That's
And
correct.
that's where these guys tend to hide a lot of that cost, right? Rather than, can we dictate in a bid, we wanna see the cost of the materials, we wanna see the cost of labor installation.
See here, Arctic Campaign's $1,800.
Yeah,
We can get the price directly from the manufacturer.
12.
They may be able to get a better price than us, but,
Oh, that's the ADA.
so if you want, we can go to the manufacturer, we can go to playground equipment and just show them, this is, how much is this, the softball. They can tell us as if we were going to install. So you can see that, is that what you're asking?
and what we've done.
Or if we're in the bid process, we can say, this is how we want to see the bid. We wanna see the cost of the material and we wanna separate the cost of
What we can do is this, is that labor costs will continue to go up. And there's, when we go out to a competitive bid, if we go to somebody and say, it's very difficult for a government entity to go for a low cost bid, and then say, we won't award it unless you shave some more on. We need to rebid again. So that's how we would go get a lower price. I'm not sure we would get a lower price. In fact, I imagine there might be a slight dip in January or December, but next year, starting in February, the prices will go up again. So it's really based more on the material. So I think the cost of labor is going to be the same or higher. But
That's why I'd say if we can see that separated and have a little more transparency. And not just this one, I'm just saying in the future, I think this is where government gets
That's why
gouged.
we can show that, Gordon's absolutely correct. We can, if me and you go negotiate, I get a project in my yard, I can work on that person, give me that price, and June
So
down.
used to
Well, I
it.
do-
You can't do that in government.
I've done this from a business perspective, and that's where
It's
the
fine,
conversation ended is, look, well, what's the cost of materials and what's the cost for you to put it in?
I
We know
guess-
you gotta make a buck, but
So if their costs, the labor costs are too inflated, it's difficult for us to say, will you lower these? We basically just need to rebid it. And even if you see the itemized labor and materials, and we say, that's still too much for labor, we still need to pay it. We can't go back to them and say, we want you to reduce your labor.
Have we used this company before?
I understand what you're saying. My point is, it's more transparent that way.
Clearer for you to see. There's probably a way to do that.
Gordon, I was just gonna say, we can ask them to provide that. In fact, maybe to speak to it just a little bit, the way that it is typically done with government entities is a unit price is asked for, because we can only charge them on a unit price. So they give us everything, including labor. But we can go back once it's bid and ask for that information. But the way that we keep that profit margin down best we can is we bid it competitively, right? We send it out to all.
Well, that's why I'm seeing that, and you've got all of the different companies on here. And so
Yeah,
I see that that's the low bid. It's just hard to distinguish.
So
the
one,
cost.
yeah, and for what it's worth, we have one of the contractors in here who actually did that he said, here's my cost, just material, no labor. And, it's actually the second bidder. He withdrew his bid for that purpose, actually, because he said, we couldn't charge him, just his unit cost without labor. If that makes sense.
And that's why it's grayed out as he.
Yeah, because he just gave material and not labor. That was the second bidder.
That's good.
So I don't think what you're asking is inappropriate. I think we can get that. The question I'd have is, I'm not confident the bidder can get that to us well, we could probably get it fairly quickly, but we won't have another city council meeting.
Well, I'm like I said, I'm not necessarily that concerned about this particular project, but going
In the
forward, I'd like to see
We can
it
still
done
get that
differently.
before you, and we can go back to what you requested to get the nods. I just need to have more detailed conversation with you and the mayor to make sure we feel good about if we're moving forward or not. If we go back and give you the cost, it's still gonna be the same cost, it's just gonna have it broken down more.
So I think the bigger issue here is whether or not, as a council, we like the idea of this particular park.
And I wanna get a little further discussion, because from my sidebar conversation with you, there's more to it than that. It's about how much we collect in this area, which we got an update on that. But the point being is, our capital facilities plan is written to where we can spend that money all over, because we know that the southeast Herriman doesn't lend us to build flat parks over there. So we need that money to build more programmable parks on this side of the city by design. Meaning that we will eventually get to where we can actually buy some property and get some more athletic fields. This area, we all know how the past has evolved, and we didn't get all the playing fields that we was gonna have in this area. With that said, we have a couple of Band-Aid fixes that we'd like to post to you and see the overall green space you have in this area, and say, how much more money do you wanna spend in this area versus take some of that money and move it to more programmable stuff as we get further west and start nailing that piece down.
So you know that's where I wanna go next is.
Right, so this one, this by your
Looking,
comments.
yeah, looking at this area, there are no parks, none, zero.
They're,
And
this is
I don't
all
wanna just
green, and some of them are HOA, but there's still playground, there's still parks.
Will you make sure you call out which one are HOAs and which ones are not?
So, let me.
And then we've been having a discussion about that other piece of properties we have, and one is with that, and one is very expensive to do, and I also make our priority list. I'd be shocked if you supported that one, but maybe that one is.
All right, I'll come down there.
So just for, you guys may have
Order
this
you.
conversation.
You get through this, because we need to get.
I'll go quick.
I came back to him and while sharing, I realized this last week, it's about in this area, there are no other parks. I know it's easy to just say, okay, well, let's make this park bigger and better, but if that's all we do over here, we fail. Like, we need to make sure that we do it, just sit and look at the entire area.
I think
So
what you're bringing up is
everything
correct.
east of 6,000 west and west of Mountain View Corridor, pretty much right in Herriman Boulevard to 118th.
Yeah.
Kind of
So what we're looking at is, you have Terramere, and then you have, this is the Miller Crossing, this is Anthem over here. I have not looked across the street, I'm just looking at this area right here. This is covered up, we have two apartment projects here. So this is the project we're talking about, the 2.5 acres. And you can kind of see the one field and the kind of the playground equipment.
Also, stay on that part for a second, because I was concerned, because those roads are not that big in there to bring a programmable park for teams. But Gordon, kind of show how the road goes out the other way to the east, because it's not really in yet.
Yeah, it'll be built so they can come.
So I was
off of that.
concerned when we had one way in, one way out. That was concerning.
And then they can come up through here or out. Either way, this will likely be used heavily by this group. I don't see it, you know, I think other people will come to it, particularly with this playground, but this will be a big deal to this area.
How many apartment units are right there?
This one's
343.
343. So let me just give you an idea of what will be available for the residents in this area. Not saying it's sufficient or judging it one way or the other. Starting here, this is a senior housing, so everybody here is 55 and older. They have a clubhouse and they have some stuff that they deal with. So I think the trail coming through here may be sufficient for that crowd. This is single family, there's no parks, like you said, involved here. This is just the open space trail pathway. I think this is more single family here. Now we have our townhome project here. They have playground equipment in 2 locations in some open space. Again, nothing as large as that.
It's HOA.
Oh, the HOA maintains it. So this would be these people here, Herriman. They have a detention basin, but then they have their clubhouse and open space here. Then you have the apartments. They have their clubhouse, and then they have, I think, 2 or 3 playground things. This one is a townhome. They have 2 playgrounds here and up here that were installed. One's kind of a real small tot lot. And this has a playground. So that just kind of shows you what recreation. Now to Councilman Henderson, they do not have a huge, like 10 acre, 15 acre, 10 acre, 5 acre park. This is the biggest they would have, is this field right here. And Wendy could tell us what size field that is.
So the only public open spaces, not HOA open spaces, but
Is it trail?
is the trail
Trails.
and then this proposed park.
Right.
And all of that. Crazy.
And how many residential units? And even, I mean, like you said, this isn't extending to the west where there's are no parks over there.
There's some block of parks.
We've got the trail that goes through there. We've got the schools, and then the other apartments. How many residents are in this?
I don't have that number. We could get back to you on
I
that.
drove through there the other night after the meeting, and maybe we should use some of the descriptive terms they use for Brett. Like it was like a refugee camp. I mean, it was like a war zone with all the construction, and the streets are so narrow, the driveways are narrow. I almost ran over 3 kids driving through. I mean, it was just crazy. And so, I guess my big issue on this side of town, people feel, and I feel the same way, is that we kind of get ignored.
Need more parks.
Right? All this density has come in, and what are the residents told? And every single one of them that comes in here that's opposed to density, we tell them, well, we need density to get the open space.
Do you want to go to the next slide?
So we've paid the price for all the density in this area. Where's the open space?
Well, not just that area. We've had the same issue come up in a couple places in town.
Well, I feel this area is underserved more than most. I mean,
The one that shows.
I think we do the math with the number of residents, and then especially what Doug's doing on the other side, where you got.
Oh, I don't disagree with this.
No parks.
So I'd say the outskirts of town, like the outsides, tend to have less than we've seen in the older sections of town.
So
Hear what you had to say about not having enough grass space here. The top of the park that we own, and we actually zone that commercial, it can be sold commercial, you know, the problems with contamination of that and the cost of doing that. It makes this park almost off the chart when we'd have to clean it up. There'd be no revenue coming off it, and then we'd have to install the park. We could do some mediation on bringing costs down, we're gonna have to take down to the spar, because it's a park, and there's a way to cap some of that. There's some that still needs to come off, so there's gonna be a cost of that, probably $2 to $3 million at the bare minimum, just to get it rated a bit.
this design is rough, and this is just an idea. What we
What way
did,
to do that?
we put the parking up here. We'd have to remove this dirt or relocate it somewhere else on the property.
That's the big berm right there.
Right, but this would be the parking area, so we need to have it come at grade. We do have an access off of 56, so that there's possibility of 2 access points. And again, this is just a rough layout. This is not a design. This is just a concept of what could go there. The cost for grass, like this kind of stuff, is I think $250,000 an
It's
acre.
more than that now,
It's more than that.
yeah.
That's why I should be estimating. And then we did
What was
a.
that price last week?
We did 2 pavilion kind of things, a playground. This has a lot of stuff. You could look at maybe selling a portion of it off commercial that's a corner that may not be usable to help finance part of it. We don't have a lot of 15-acre parks. This would be probably our 2nd or 3rd biggest park in the city, maybe, in terms of active parks. We have a lot of acreage in passive parks that are bigger, but active parks.
costly to get ready to develop. That has to come out of general fund, that piece of cleanup comes out of general fund, which competes against roads and everything else.
And Blake got a quote on remediating that, and what was it, Blake?
4.5 million.
And is that remediation?
That's
What
pulling
level
off.
of remediation?
Take everything
You have to
off.
haul it all away. If, you could cap it,
You can
the
cap
state
it.
lets us cap it, but if we do that, there's monitoring requirements, and there's a lot of other developers that wanna cap theirs and give it to us, and it's hard to tell them no if we do it ourselves.
Well, I don't have a hard time with that. Here's my comment, is the issue with this is that with this cap comes some problems. You can't penetrate it. So we wouldn't be planting trees up here where the pavilions and so forth. There's some regulatory issues of watering to make sure we're not seeping into and leaching into the groundwater. There's a few things we'd have to deal with. Not that we couldn't overcome them with the proper capping and so forth. There would need to be some material removed just so this would be at grade. I don't know that you want to go and pilot in the back, but you could. Those are options.
I think you can go up and higher, it'd be taller than the houses.
No, you can go higher. And
So is this the only area left that's
No.
available?
so,
More
What
open
about
space.
across the street
Go-
right
go
now?
back to the-
Wait, across the street, is that need remediation also?
no, this is
Is
clean.
that, how big is that chunk? 2 acres?
3 acres.
That's
3
a
acres?
detention.
You could put it to,
A small parking lot and
Small
A
fields,
small field.
depending on how we have to do for detention, depending on what that looks like.
if you squeeze the corners, you actually get 100 yards by 60 yards, but it's pushing it.
I think that one is almost a no-brainer. I mean, we need to do
It's just
something with
weeds
it if it's
everywhere.
retention anyway.
We almost concur, we want landscape somehow anyway, cause it's kind of our gateway road.
that's always been mentioned. Why isn't that done yet? So you've just sounded his horn. He's very happy you said.
But the cost of remediation is the whole reason we're looking at selling this.
That's the whole reason.
At the same time, that's why I brought the map in the other day and was like, tell me where the other areas are where there's supposed to be
And
open
really-
space. How in the world does this happen?
In this area, and then we were talking about the other property we'll be talking about tonight as well in another meeting, is, west of Mountain View Corridor and east of Main Street. What your desires are to do with that property, so, but it lends itself to doing parks in that area as well, it doesn't fit.
Go to
This
the big picture.
triangle piece on the south side there, on Herriman Martin, that's almost a no-brainer.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, for sure. I think
So let's go to what, you were talking about. So this shows this park. It doesn't have any of this put in here. Yeah, you can see what was going on here. It kind of gives you a feel for the west side. None of this, so we can update this map. This shows the 43 acres. This is the 100 acres that we have an offering to purchase at this point. And then it doesn't really illustrate the schools. But this, I think, shows the point you're talking about. The city owns this 2.5 acres, that's the detention pond. There's the 15.5 that we own. We also own, right there, 2.5 acres. It's currently zoned commercial. And we're gonna talk about selling that here shortly. The LDS Church owns, I think, 4 acres back here.
That's that empty field right there.
They wanted to do a church, we were told they don't now, but for a while, they were on the market selling, it seems like backed off, but that's a property that could be purchased. And then you have 7 acres. Right in front of it, we sold off a piece for the Danzy Orthodontal. And later on, because people are trying to buy it, we're gonna talk to you about whether you wanna get an appraisal to sell that 1.5 acres. So,
Our last direction on that, probably was Tammy was direction to go and have it appraised.
So right now, this is getting appraised, and I still think that's a smart deal to do, even if you wanted to do a park, sell a part of it, you just need to know what it's worth. And the appraisal's gonna come to you as though it's clean. Because that's the way anybody's gonna buy it. They're not, if we're gonna buy it, we're gonna have to estimate the cost for cleaning, trucking, and all that, so I'm just getting you an appraisal, so if we want to sell it, we'd have to difference the cost to clean it up. And we can pay for the cleanup, or we can have somebody else clean it up, take the risk, there's a whole slew of options. But right now, we're getting an appraisal for what that would cost, so we could sell to somebody clean. This is Umbria here. The fire station is gonna be located here, and then there's a commercial site here.
And
So,
that whole area to the north is, we got, what, other, how many hundreds of homes with no parks.
So what would, here's a thought for
It's
this.
interesting enough, we were planning, even though we don't have some of the programmable parks, and we start thinking about Rosecrest, we start looking at the green space, this actually has some more green space than Rosecrest.
So
It was interesting to
Because of
us,
calling.
kind of surprised us.
So let me throw an idea at you. What I'd recommend is that we have a joint planning commission meeting coming up on 31st. We ought to take up the discussion of what the city council maybe wants to do in terms of parks. We can show all these maps, put them out, and let's talk relevantly and have everybody talk about it. Do we want to expand, get some more property? Those are all choices you guys get to make. We could do it just as a work meeting with just the council if you'd rather not have the planning commission there. But I think nothing I'm talking about is going away. The appraisal's gonna take another month or two. So the properties that are available to purchase aren't at risk. They are static. So you don't have to make a decision tonight other than say, let's come back and discuss the parks and open space in this quadrant of the city. And let's bring that back maybe more as a work item than and let's hear, and what we can come back to you is pricing and just see what we think. And then maybe make a decision.
I've had a lot of consternation on this project as well, right along with you. The cost, the size, the access. And when you look at this big map and knowing what the HOAs have put in for playground equipment, really making something good for your residents that have bought and living here, and actually they love living there, they really do. But if we get the trail system in, I've come to a space that I need to support the Arches Park, because it's really the only thing that's gonna be nice. And if we actually do that piece on the south side of the road, get a plan for that, and get that done, for where they can actually have some space to go throw a frisbee for a distance or something, just anything, go play catch. It does help, it's not the fix, it's not the fix. I still struggle with having the lack of it, and I've had struggle with that for 10 years on this area. We will have some of the biggest open space in the whole city on the north side of the city when we're done with what you kind of have this direction wise, but it's not close to this. It's closer than other people will be coming across our whole city to use though.
And that's my concern, we can talk about it in the next meeting concerning this other bit of property, because the overarching for me, for Arches Park, I'll say, keep this in mind as far as budget goes for the rest of it. I'm okay with Arches Park, and really, it needs I'd take a restroom there for a fantastic playground. I'm fine with the fantastic playground if everyone else is, but I'm not gonna let up on the fact that it needs to be more open space in this particular area. If I can borrow your pointer, Gordon. I'll reorder this thing.
Push the red line.
Don't poke your eye out.
This one. So this entire area, I mean, I dare you just go drive it. I mean, the density there is so intense. There's nowhere for those kids to go. The little HOA provided
I drove it not that
places,
long ago myself.
there's nowhere. The trail that's there is what's counting for half of the open space.
So let's
I get
talk about
that.
the trail. There's opportunity, particularly with more creative people than me, Gordon, that's for sure. But trails, you actually see them around where you actually do bolts while you're going on a trail. There's places to stretch or exercise or something along that trail system that makes it active. Does that make sense? So we can capitalize on this limited space to make it a little bit more attractive than it is just the trail asphalt.
Sure, there's gotta be a place for the kids to go.
Yeah, and that's what I'm
right?
saying, make it to where it becomes creative for them to do something.
Because that, just for history, for those that are watching, for those that might not have been involved, I wasn't involved, this is when I was a resident, and I've been educated since then, is Anthem, Doug's area, he convinced 2 or 3 versions of council ago to let him count the schools as the open space.
Right.
Like, there are no parks in
Percentage of it, yes.
There are no parks in his area because the schools count as open space, and he got paid 100% for the schools. It's just crazy to me. But then the Bowler project, they have all that crazy density in there, and that was my overarching question when we were looking at this, is wait a second, I haven't seen any parks go in there. How did they get all that density and no parks? Which I know is part of what we'll talk about later. There's 10 acres or so that is wrapped up in the Walmart deal. So to me, there's 10 acres of parks that needs to be in that area for those residents, because the density there is so intense. And if you don't give them a place to go, they'll find a place to go. And it won't be as good at activities.
We know that more about our kids and interactive of the youth. If you don't give them a place, they will get creative on where they're gonna spend their time, what they're going to do.
That's it for my soapbox.
They'll do activities that,
We feel the same thing.
So, do we feel good about moving forward with the arches then with the restroom?
I think,
I feel you
I
need
think
that.
you need
I
the
think if
restroom.
you're gonna have that kind of a park, it has to have a restroom, especially when you think about the number of homes and stuff around there, people are using that. If you're gonna make it a destination kind of park, you need to have a place for them to use the restroom.
Okay.
So I did get a chance to talk about Nicole, and she says her concern is it's almost like you're kind of feeling, we have got to do something a little bit nicer in this area. You're bugged, and she's not happy that it's that small. But she still wants to do something nicer for that area, because this park here has been a great hit for overall city, but the playground, watch these residents walk into it and use it. It's phenomenal. Because of the density. So she is supporting moving forward, so you know that.
So I think you're getting your nods on the Arches Park, but also, yeah, we need to talk
We
about
need
the
to
bigger
talk
plan.
about a bigger plan there, I agree with you.
As much as it gives me anxiety, because I like bigger parks, like, we're not gonna say, we've gotta do something this area.
I would, as we move forward and have the bigger discussion, I would like to make sure that we're having that discussion in regards to the entire city and not just the north side. I think there's a couple of areas that are falling into the same path. And if we're gonna have this discussion about what we're doing as a city with our parks and our open space, I think we need to have it as the entire city all at once. And so, that would just be all I'd like to add at this point, is that I think we do have some really dense areas, exactly like Jared is saying. We have some very dense areas where we have a lot of density, and there are no city maintained, or very limited city maintained amenities for those areas. I personally do not count HOA purchased and maintained parks in this discussion, because those residents, they own that park, they pay for that park, it's a private park, they have the right to kick people out of that park. So for me, in this discussion, I really am only gonna be focusing on city-owned and maintained facilities.
Okay.
And we're in the process, we just met with Landmark Design yesterday of updating the Parks Master Plan. So we'll be going through that process this year, so this is a really good time to have healthy discussion on that, so.
Let's move forward with that. We'll bring it back to you and talk about any properties that are at risk, so make sure we don't lose any options while we go through this planning process.
I'll also bring you back a plan on that. The 2 acres on the south side of the road, what we can be able to do there.
That's a good plan.
As part of us trying to fix some of this,
I think that's kind of easy.
and probably a more interactive trail system.
Yeah. Are we gonna talk about
It's
landscaping
already
stuff,
created.
the Herriman Boulevard, we talked about that now?
Herriman,
Landscape Boulevard.
oh,
Just tell us what you want that we're feeding your stuff.
it's like,
Okay. It's later. Later.
Later. Got it.
yeah.
Inform.
So, Wendy, since you started speaking,
Stay here.
Black Ridge, filming
Yes, so we will be hosting a video shoot
in
tomorrow,
Not Break.
which we're very excited about.
Does it rain?
Alex Boyer will be shooting a portion of his video at Black Ridge Reservoir tomorrow. We're gonna close the park down at 2, get it all cleaned up. They're gonna shoot sometime between 4 and 5 o'clock, and then we'll be done.
It's a YouTube
So-
video.
We're very excited. It is a video, the name of the song is Bend Not Break, and it is about mental health and depression and suicide awareness, and Herriman High School's been very involved in it, from my understanding, in the school district, so we're excited to be part of that and have them in our city. He has requested Yeti to appear. Yeti is now saying he's going to get an agent, so we're working through that process.
And he made a lot of demands on the things that he
He
wanted.
did, getting very
Ice
demanding.
chips and
Snow cones.
Apparently went over
Can't
to
beat my
the pool here, plug up the drain.
So that's the update on that. So it's already been pushed out on social media, thanks to Tammy and her group, that we were closing Black Ridge tomorrow. And hopefully we don't have another storm like this.
It's actually this is last.
Turn the shoes. Hope so. And you're all welcome to come and join in the video if you'd like.
Do you wanna keep on talking about the Herriman Hero?
Sure. So, last time we met, we talked about the returning veterans process. I sent Brett an outline about a timeline of what we need to get the program in place. My estimate is that September we would come back, with an updated ordinance to add the committee to our citizen committee list. October through December, gather committee members, have them appointed, and then really start putting the program in place. Probably in March, start doing the event. So that's where we're at with that one. Any questions on that?
That's moving forward, is pretty great ideas and our area we need to manage and administrate, so.
So there'll be more coming on that in September.
Next time is something I talked to you on the phone, something personal on, back in the history of Herriman, we've always had a concern about middle school kids and making sure we have the right resources in the school to support them. And, back as far as 10 years when we started talking about it, but the school district was not on the same page of maybe help supporting some of that. But it's got a full-time officer in each middle school. Which is, terms has reached out to us, out of our last week, and that's one that they actually have an officer, they're going to support putting a full-time officer in the middle schools. And I was thrilled to hear the idea of it, and before I went any further, I have to go talk to Alan and say, Alan, do we have enough in our service district to pay for these funds? I'll have to speak to that in a moment, but we met with the school district again today, their CFO, what they know what it look like. And we did show revenue coming back in from their support of school resource officer. It's also called, pays for the DARE officer. And they pay $45,000 towards each person or officer. So it's not the full cost, it costs us more than that. So the city's actually paid their part of the cost. Another animal will find another day how they do it in other counties and something like counties in the state of Utah. That's a discussion we don't take more than push them on that. But we are still excited about the concept of it. I felt like I talked to all your 100% support of this. I think there's a good need for this, especially when you have 1,800 some ish kids in Upper Mountain Middle. It's about 1,750. So they're a 5A high school already. That's the point. They put one officer in there. That's a lot of kids. Brian and Chad can say, now that's hard to put your brain and arm around. So all of you actually gave me the nod support. I want to talk to the public. So this is a thing that I want to make the public know that you are supportive of this idea, and I'll let you talk to your support for it, because I think we can do more good in these middle schools to have an officer there than anything we do. And by the way, Alan, what's your thoughts on the finances? That was question one part you talked about.
If I may interject for a second, I think it's important to remind the public, anybody who might be watching or paying attention, is that, Alan, how much does the school district pay for an SRO?
$45,000.
They pay $45,000 of the roughly $135,000 a year cost. Crossing guards are up to us to pay for all of those things. So while yeah, we support schools, it comes from our budget.
Our first year with the resource officer will be, it'll be about $160,000 minus the 45 that they give us. It's actually gonna cost us about $110,000 for the first year. That's getting the truck and the gun, the computer, the radio.
The vehicle's probably the biggest chunk that
It
comes
is.
out of that other wages, which is something you gotta do, but then it's in place, so.
The wages and benefits will be about $94,000. Truck with it equipped the way that we need to equip them, there's about $55,000.
So, Alan, I need to, you tell the council your thoughts about, are we okay to move forward financial side.
It looks to me like we'll still be within what we budgeted for it.
Which, with him saying that, I wanna make known for the council, the mayor, and the public, is we're not hiring 34 officers, we just want to 35 officers, sworn officers, starting out September 30th. That's a good message to send, and you're putting your money where I can get a lot of value. When we talked to Ryan, who's a school resource officer in Colorado, and Simon, or Herriman, he's like blown away with the numbers of the kids he's got to deal with. So thank you for your, giving your time to give your support to the public.
I support it.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's no doubt that obviously we've had our challenges out here, over the past year. There's no doubt that we need to invest in our kids in any way possible out here. You know, we've been talking playgrounds, we've been talking all those things. This is another one for us to invest in the valuable resource of our youth out in this area, and at least have resources available to them and other applicants, and I'm fully supportive.
It's in that same area we were just talking about.
Yep.
I'll just throw it again, talking with other cities who want to add more school resource officers, but are being told by the mother organization, nope, we don't have enough people to do it. That's another advantage of kind of controlling our own destiny, put the resources there we can.
So the reason that you're not is so important for me as your city manager and the city hall of the city is tomorrow morning we will be ordering a truck. Tomorrow morning there'll be a job offer from Chad and the chief.
That was actually one of the questions I had as part of the whole startup. My guess is that as part of this process of hiring all of the positions we need to fill, that we've already got a list in place that we can immediately draw from, that we can move quickly and have this resource ready to go right off the get-go along with everything else.
Correct, yeah. We're trying to get the new truck here versus they've already, I agree, because they've already got their eye on somebody already.
Yeah, we kept a list of applicants in reserve, so we had, a number of applicants apply for our initial hire, and anticipating we may have some people back out, or we may have a need like this arise, we kept a list in reserve, and so not only do we have one person available, but if something else were to come up with some turnover or whatever else, we do have extra people on a list, yeah.
You're gonna make somebody very happy maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, I think we will. That's the good part of the job.
Maybe two.
And their piece that John has already been working on, their local, you will have to pass on September 12th, so you'll have it on your packet on September 5th, but there's a faster timeline. We have to have a draft that us and the school district can pass off on, feel good about by tomorrow afternoon, because it has to go in their school board packet Friday for their meeting on Tuesday. So see, now you see how important your knot is. It's moving faster than we can try to do it. So.
And I think the point that Jared brought up is a point worth communicating to our residents of the ability that this creates us to be able to do and to act quickly and decisively and to get that resource in place right off the get-go.
Right, and fortunately, we're in kind of a unique situation where we are a new entity. We did have a list of decent applicants that are interested in coming over here, but one of the challenges we'll face in the future, and maybe the near future, is the same issues that all the other law enforcement agencies around the state are having, and that's in hiring and retention. So, and fire departments and everywhere else. But right now, we're in a pretty position, and we can move forward on this right away.
So thank you for your support on that. So I want Tam to talk about ACUP funding, and normally this is a Heather thing, but because of what's happening in Washington, get some help on what our legislative body person to talk about what's happened this last week.
So when we returned from Washington, we made you guys aware of the fact that ACUP money could be in jeopardy with Camp Williams, that they may not qualify to receive anymore based on the fact that their installation is on state lands and BLM. So based off of the definition of what an installation is, in order to receive federal funds, technically could have had the potential to not qualify. So we've been working with our federal lobbyists, we've been working with, federal legislators, and we've been working with the Department of Defense. And we now had a letter that was sent to Neil Love on Tuesday that did solidify and acknowledge that Camp Williams now qualifies, so we're not in danger anymore of not receiving those funds, and we should be receiving another 3.5 million by the end of this month.
So Neil have actually went on the floor and all that, but is what's the name that was went to her and says, do you support this? And she says, yes, so we backed her up.
Well, we had a couple, we had,
I'm drawing the blank too real quick.
starts with an S.
The one up in.
Stewart. That was Chris Stewart. And so he went to her, they both actually went and kind of fought for the language to be put in, so that the definition does open it up. So they do acknowledge that Camp Williams is a federal installation and it will continue to receive and qualify for a Kevin Ruffey funding. It was a lot of work, and our federal lobbyist also put a lot of legwork into this, running back and forth, keeping us updated. I think we were receiving up to 3 to 4 emails a day from her, in addition to phone calls, as she was trying to coordinate all of us and draft statements. And we ended up getting everything, all the verbiage in there. It all worked out, and so we can breathe easy. We got a copy of the statement so that we can keep that, so that if we ever find ourselves in a pickle in the future, we can pull that out and show that it is a federal
That's
institution.
the $3.5 million quote that we have lined up for us to come this year, still lined up for us, so that to try out. Big deal. It's interesting, last meeting, the mayor brought up, we'd like to talk about district boundaries. We actually brought it up to, I think it was January or something like that, and you said you didn't want to discuss it, so they actually further discussed it a little further. We've talked about this and the timing of the census and everything. Jack, you want to talk a little bit about district boundaries?
So the conversation that we had was with the previous council, and they had requested that we waited till the census came out because they were concerned about making it a little bit more convenient for voters changing district boundaries, trying to make it a little bit easier rather than changing and then the next election we changed it again. We did go through the population estimates, and there is a huge disparity there that does need to be considered on that. We are required by law to adjust them after every census. The census will be conducted with preliminary information towards the end of 2020, with all final numbers being by the spring of 2021, so that we can have it finalized for our municipal election in the fall of 2021. But what I'm looking for is if the council would like to consider redistricting for the 2019 election, I would just either A, if you want to do it, yes or no, and if yes, do you want to look at keeping it 4 districts? Do you look at 3 districts?
What's the disparity? And I'd like to know.
I did print out some maps, so if.
Thank you.
District 4, it's largest with landmass, but it also does have the highest population at 17,947, and District 3 at 7,881. So there is a large.
What's the percentage on all of these? I guess I can do the math here real quick. If I remember correctly, our city code, doesn't it require us, and I don't know, John, if you can speak to this or not, doesn't it require us at a certain point that we have to update it due to if it gets substantially out of whack?
I don't think our city code does.
The state code just requires after
It's in
every
our city
census.
code and it says shall in our city code.
I wasn't prepared to even, I didn't know this was on the agenda, so I haven't even looked at it.
When we go through and do the district boundaries, we are required by law to have it substantially equal. Things do get a little bit misaligned as development happens. There is some areas in District 3 and District 2 and a lot in District 1 that could actually even out these populations. So where it appears the majority of the population is going in District 4, but that's
So that's what I was just
It
gonna
could
say, over the
change.
course of the next 2 and a half years, by the time the census is done, I think a lot of this is gonna balance out.
And
Developments coming.
that very well may be the case.
Cause for sure in my district, there's a ton of development and district, yeah, exactly what you're saying. You might see that.
We have development going on everywhere, it's just depending on how fast those developments are moving forward.
And I think, I don't know, personally, I think that's what the law requires us to do, is fix during the census. And then that's.
I think the census makes sense for a lot of reasons. I mean, that's what as the only member, I guess, from the previous council, I know, what was on that same conversation, that was our thinking, was, yeah, why would we wanna change it and then have to change it again? That's one of the main complaints from voters is, then it looks like gerrymandering. Right, so if we have all the processes laid out, we have the census that's done periodically, that's when it's supposed to happen, we have all the construction that's gonna happen, and then it just makes sense to do it.
Districts tend to be really quickly driven, so stat wise, it just, it takes all the effort to do district boundaries, draw them up.
I got it right here, John, you want it?
To the mayor's point, our city code says that the city council shall by ordinance make adjustments to the boundaries of the districts may be required to maintain districts of substantially equal population within 6 months after the Utah State Legislature completes its redistricting process. So it doesn't have to stay that way 100%, it's just after.
But,
Pretty good disparity that exists right now, that's for sure.
and that's my
Yes.
concern, is that we have a substantial, and I guess the question is, what do we consider substantial?
John considered it 3 to 5%. When we did last time, he said if you're within 3 to 5%, you're probably fine.
Which, to that note, when we wanted to keep it with the 4 districts, we could not get it that close.
One of the reasons is that we try to follow along the state precinct boundaries. We don't want to split a precinct. And so when you do that, you can't just arbitrarily put this, the first we overlay is the precinct, the set boundary, the congressional boundaries. And then, so we don't create further division. And so then that means certain things happen.
So,
It's a little more complicated, but we can,
as I'm looking at this, between our biggest and our smallest, we have a 21% difference in population in our city.
What we've talked about previously, and I've just mentioned, is what are the numbers that are gonna be added to those, right? So District 4 obviously is larger, that's where a lot of the building's gone on. But now we're gonna see that even out, in the other 3, especially the ones that.
So my opinion, for what, as one member of this body, is I think we should go ahead and take the time to redistrict now. I think it's a 21% difference is far outside of what the intent of the code was indicated. How we wanna do that, I think, is obviously up for discussion, but my opinion and my vote would be that we try to do this.
I'll give you my opinion, census is the time to do it.
Say that again, Jared, sorry.
I think the census is the time to do it. We have to do it at that time.
Yeah, I think so too. What's the cost of this change?
Well, we would have, several public meetings that we would have to do, there is a lot of legwork into it, but I don't have an actual cost estimate.
All the members pretty reasonable first.
And our next election prior to the census will involve districts 1 and 4.
That's correct.
Yeah, and District 1 obviously is gonna be
Things are gonna change pretty soon.
substantial.
I don't think for me, it's District 3 that, District 1 and District 3 are so much smaller than District 4
Yeah,
is the concern.
but District 3 has always stayed very much stronger, much longer.
That's why I think the census,
So
doing it
then we'll
after the
have-
census makes sense, cause you've got dams and properties that have to be built. You've got all the stuff coming in.
Are we expecting all of those projects to be built out in the next 2 years? Cause that would be part of this conversation, is we're talking yeah, there's stuff approved, but are we expecting to have these large areas all built out in the next 2 years? No, they'll continue to grow even after we have the.
Right, but I think that needs to be taken into consideration as we go through that process.
Cause otherwise, I mean, if that's the logic, then we would redistrict every 2 years.
Right.
Oh, maybe that's what we need to do.
I don't think so.
It could cause a lot of confusion changing the district boundaries for the 2019 and then again for the 2021 election. I don't know specifically how each district would be, but the biggest complaint we get is when voters don't really know what location they're voting in, and the election process should be convenient for the voters.
Obviously, there's a big disparity. And we, again, because of what's proposed in some of these areas, we know that that's going to change. But my main concern over potentially doing that ahead of this census would be just what Jackie brought up, is confusion to our residents and making this really more painful than it's going to be. Because it's going to be challenging regardless. And doing that and then being required to do it again 2 years later. My opinion would be to wait for the census.
I don't think
So
you wanna
if the
put all your efforts and dollars into communicating this big change, only to then do it again a year later.
Right.
They're gonna think that you didn't pay attention.
And there's gonna be a lot of people who think that it's just flat out gerrymandering.
Yep. Again, my singular opinion would be to wait.
Seems like we should just do that.
Well,
Make a fifth district.
Yeah.
and that's something that the council.
Well, and I think as we look towards that,
It could definitely be an option.
we have all of those discussions.
But the one thing you'll need to remember when that time comes is we have to go by population, not land size.
Sure.
Yes.
But because they're building all this out by reality, I think that will really increase too.
And in that very moment.
Well, I think you guys have your direction.
So the next thing is we got an item to bring to you, we'll bring in a formal, if you're supported. We found a piece of property that we probably don't wanna own. It's a right of way for a road that we're not gonna build a road to. If we could throw that up on the screen, I'll Blake talk to it, Kid Cabin Trail Way. Is that what it's called? No, it's not Kid Cabin.
It's Cabin Trail Way.
Wrong road. This is Cabin.
Yeah, it's a little piece of property. We've come to you with Cabin Trail Way before. It's right next to where we've had the flooding issues, and there's actually a budget item to fix some of the flooding issues for the property to the east of where we're talking here. But this area was deeded as city right-of-way back in the 90s, and when it was the county.
Well, it wasn't deeded.
Or it was platted and dedicated. Keep mixing up the words deeded and dedicated.
That's important.
So John tells me that's important. When it comes up, but anyway, it was dedicated to us by plat, 25 feet of right of way, half road. And then as the development came around, the roads never tied through. So this is a section of road that will never become the full 53-foot right of way. We own it currently, and there's some risk that we would have to go in and maintain this. It's being used. There's 2 homes that front it. Here we go. So this will help me talk to it. So you can see Butterfield Parkway, Butterfield Park. We're just south of Butterfield Park up the hill. This is Fort Herriman Cove. And so this property is this little strip right here. You can see how the road comes down and kind of bends in a knuckle.
Do you have a?
And then this road comes
view of
through.
that?
Yep, we're zooming in right there. So you can see.
You're good.
So is that essentially a flag lot? I mean, is that what we've?
It was going to be a road. It was subdivided when it was Salt Lake County. So
It's a road to nowhere.
they're platted. So we actually have the plat right here. That's the property dedicated to Salt Lake County. When it incorporated it or was annexed into the city, it became Herriman City. When this road developed and everything happened up here, You can see that's not gonna tie through. These homes are brand new, these homes are a little bit older. Eventually, this will probably subdivide someday, I don't know how many years out. And then this road, I would imagine, come down, come out, go out to Butterfield Parkway. So
So do they utilize that for their driveway?
That's the only.
it's their
access.
driveway, so we can go through the process of vacating and have them use an easement, just like it would be a flag lot. And then we wouldn't be liable to possibly maintain it or own it. This is just something we wanted to bring to the council to see if you wanted us to go forward with the vacation
Can we
process
sign
on
nothing
it.
on that property?
Yeah, I know. Otherwise, we're gonna have to maintain it.
We haven't, but there's a risk that we could.
Well, we don't have to maintain it.
Well, we just don't, there's no value to us.
There's no value to it. There's no reason for us to hold on to it.
Well, the only potential issue I could see is if that does subdivide later.
They have to buy a house too. Everybody they get.
Well, but anyway, they do, but that's potential additional access for, you know, a road or something.
Right
Not
now,
saying
our
it
ordinance
would,
wouldn't
but-
let anyone subdivide
It would.
on a private road. It'd have to be 53 feet wide, and that's only 25. So
They still have to take out more of that property.
you'd have to take out the
Then I'm good.
homes.
Yep, go, I don't want it.
So, okay. That's a pretty good direction. Did you want to add anything onto that, Brad, or? Okay.
So I'm done with the updates. We'll move on. Oh, I do have one more. Select Community College Board of Regents is meeting out there in Select Real Friday morning. Is show support for the campus site right there at Real in the school classroom. We did it with the building board authority. So if you have interest to be in there, let us know, we'll get you plugged in to be there. I know the president will be there again. And I guess I've had a lot of people inquire about the flags and signs on Old Community Center that Select Community College is getting a lot of interesting classes being taught out there. They're getting ready for that. They start today.
Today.
Start today, it's last.
What time on Friday?
It's morning
10?
10:30? 10:30.
Would love you to be there if you can. Board of Regents have a lot of play where the money gets to go.
It's 10:30.
They actually could say, help make recognition to legislation where the money goes, and then they'll even what makes it get built, so.
I will do what I can to be there.
10:30.
And location again, please?
If you go right down into, like, going to school, like the indoor arena, or practice facility, right there where the high school is. You go in there, they have all sides of direction upstairs to a classroom.
So we're meeting at Allen's for breakfast, is that what you just said?
And,
They have signs.
Francis,
sign
It's like
no
15
other.
feet from my house.
Francis, don't disappoint, if he is, and making pastries all night again.
They were great last time.
Incredible.
They were really good.
I didn't get anybody, yes. If you could make that time, just to show your support as a city, that'd be highly valuable to the Board of Regents.
I'll have to travel again.
So 10:30, I will try.
Okay.
I'll try to be there.
Okay, thank you, Brett, appreciate it. We will move on to item 3.2, presentation regarding the Herriman Hills Master Plan. Wendy.
So the past month, we've been going through planning commission with the master plan that you all have already seen a few times. The planning commission did make a recommendation to include that plan as an element of the general plan for the city. So we'll be coming back to you next council meeting with that request. That's it.
Wow.
Moving on.
It was a great piece of paperwork that you gave us in the packet. I read the entire thing. There was a lot of time and effort. Good job. All
I
right.
did too, and I'll bug you about it.
Good. I'm glad I
Uh-oh.
should enjoy that.
All right, item 3.3, disc golf discussion.
Yes, so Brett brought this to my attention, so maybe he wants to speak on it for a moment.
So what I want to do is talk about that. I've heard from several councilmen that you want to bring this discussion back about this activity we have going through Rosecrest and Rose Creek. We've had a lot of residents complain and a lot of, obviously it's a few, just a little few that abuse private owners' rights, and that's where this discussion is going. So Winnie has a little bit about information about how many complaints she has, how many people are kind of playing it, what's been the issues, can she update you on that, and then get us direction with you all, let's do next.
So far this year, I've received 2 concerns from residents that live around hole 2. And that hole is on, if you pull up, we could pull it up on the website, the disc golf course, but it's right there off of the Rosecrest parking lot, right next to the Ride 2 arena that we have there. Concerns were really based, one resident was extremely concerned that the way the hole was set up, the discs were going into the arena and they were worried they were gonna spook horses. That was his main concern. The other individual was concerned about the people and what they were wearing on the course behind his house. So those were really the concerns that we've had voiced to us this year. As far as the horse, the free into the arena situation, we've moved the baskets around and we think we've fixed that situation a little bit. I was out there last night and there were 2 Frisbee golfers on the course. Now, whether that's normal or not normal, I can't speak to that.
About what time?
That was at about 6:30, 7 o'clock. Right before it started to rain. Yeah. So we've tried to work with residents and moving things around and monitoring the situation. Obviously, we don't have somebody out there all the time as a course monitor like you would have at a golf course. But those were the 2 main concerns that I've received this year. And since it seems like every year we get them as soon as the weather starts getting nice, and then it all kind of seems to work itself out. But I don't know. We've moved things. We can take it out. We can leave it in.
Sorry, yeah, how often are you getting complaints about people hopping into other people's yards? Cause I see
All the time.
And I think that's the bigger issue.
I think what's happening is that, honestly, I think the ones that are mostly affected by it, and I'll be honest, I am one of those. I think that for the most part, that's not being communicated back to the city.
That's what I was just gonna say, is a few years ago, this came to the council and those were the complaints we were getting and the whole locations removed, et cetera.
Yeah.
But my assumption would be that there's probably a lot of people that just resign themselves to the fact the city's not gonna do anything about this.
A lot of the residents over in my area, I believe that is the case. They've kind of worked the route on this. They've, kind of done some of the things that the city suggested back then, put up no trespassing signs, those types of things. And honestly, those don't deter anybody.
Has anybody been given, do you know, since you live in the area, if anybody's been given trespassing citations in the area?
I'm not the person to ask that.
Do you?
I don't know if
You probably
anybody's been
couldn't
cited.
answer that question right at this moment.
In my experience, when I was privy to the calls that were coming in, I think we had 2 maybe in a year, two that were actually made to the police department. So if the city's fielding calls, just based on a nuisance rather than, feeling like it's a criminal act, then we don't know about those. But as far as issuing citations and actually taking criminal action, I don't
Or
believe.
even just notices of trespass.
Yeah. No.
My concern here is the number of small children we have in these backyards and random strangers hopping fences and going into these backyards. The issue and the concern for me is either the safety of the children, because if we ever get to a point where we are comfortable with people hopping other people's fences, we have an issue. And 2, the safety of the person hopping the fence. Not only is there an issue of them falling and breaking their foot, but my understanding of the law in the state of Utah is that there would be some pretty serious argument if a homeowner pulled a gun on that particular individual. And I would rather not put any of our residents in that situation from the get-go. I don't want to be the city that's on the news because a disc golfer hopped a fence and got shot.
They're hopping the fence to get their disc.
Yeah. So here's again, I'll speak from my personal experience a little bit, and then to some of the feedback that I've heard from the residents. I know hole number 1, has a note that's been adjusted a few times, but I know that there's still, a significant amount of concern about the residents that are right there directly affected by that. That's some of the residents that have up the no trespassing signs, and again, that doesn't deter anybody. It really doesn't.
Signs don't.
And one of those residents, even communicated that the neighbor saw somebody getting ready to hop their fence, told them not to, and they just ignored them and went and did it anyways. So to the point that was made previously, unfortunately, it is the few that that ruin this for everybody. But now my backyard is along hole number 4. Several of my neighbors there as well who've experienced the same thing. But I arrived home a couple of weeks ago, just in time to walk into my house, look out my back window, and saw a gentleman walking right into my backyard. And it took me all of about 10 seconds to be in the backyard to greet him. And the point was, as the mayor brought up, our backyards are our sacred space. That's again where I have my playground for my children. And I've come home many times to find our back gate just left open, which obviously tells me that someone's been in my backyard. But again, I want to be able to, like any other neighbor in the area, wants to be able to send their kids out to their backyard to play in their own backyard without a fear of, somebody intruding in their space, a stranger. Again, maybe well-intentioned, obviously. My neighbors right next door to me have a horse pasture. Again, this whole liability issue, people climbing into their horse pasture to retrieve those. Now, I will say that there's been those where we've come home and found those discs in our backyard. Someone has done what they should, really, and put their contact information on there. And I personally have been willing to obviously just text them and say, "Found your disc. You can find it on my front porch," and and they can come and retrieve it. There are those that have been respectful, but there are certainly those that I think no matter signage and those types of things, it's not going to deter them. And that's really the question of at what level do we reevaluate the impact that it has on people around it. I like using the space. I like the amenity, but again, personally, I certainly don't like strangers walking in my backyard where I know my children can be playing. And so that's, again, kind of why I asked. I know that there's been another resident out in the area who's been going around, trying to gather signatures on a petition to have it removed altogether. Again, we have open space in our city for a reason. I like the open space. I like being able to utilize it in appropriate ways. But I think, again, we just need to really have a discussion about, some of these, are they all in inappropriate locations for this type of activity, and the impact that it has to some of those neighbors, and do we need to make some adjustments? I know that the ones, again, right there around hole 1, I think those are some of the ones that are just completely fed up, and their request is remove it. We're over it.
Wonder if I can maybe lend a little perspective.
Please.
The last conversation we had about this, I don't think Wendy had come on board yet. The conversation at that time was just that it had come back to these open spaces were not designed for this purpose.
Yeah.
This was an idea. I don't know what the genesis of the idea was, but when it was brought to us at that time, I want to say this was early on in my first year, the first few months, I want to say. So it was put in place. We were receiving a lot of complaints. It came to the council, and the council's direction at that time was, well, at the suggestion of staff, was let us adjust the boundaries, let us adjust where the baskets are. We think we can mitigate a lot of this. And if the problem persists, we'll bring it back to you, and you can decide if you want to keep this or not. That's my recollection of that.
That's pretty accurate. We did adjust a lot of baskets and holes and alignments, and actually start off of this, eliminate some of that. It did help a lot of the issues. and we are getting still a few complaints.
So I think we're at the point where it's time to reevaluate it. Those adjustments have been made. Can this be mitigated enough, or should we look at discontinuing this?
I actually just recalled, last fall, we did have two, property damage complaints come in. One of them, there was a citation issued, a juvenile citation issued for breaking a fence, a vinyl fence, trying to break over, or jump over the fence. And then another one, we didn't have a suspect on, but it was the same thing. So they kicked out a bottom rail trying to get through a vinyl fence to get their disc back. So there has become, at least as of last year, there are 2 to 4 complaints, 2 resulting in property damage.
So my question is, do we need 18 homes? I mean, if we have some problem areas, would it make sense for us to simply take out the holes that are the most problem? Say taking out 1 through 5 to start with, and seeing if that, resolves a lot of the issues, and keeping the rest of the course, and adjusting those or closing those holes as needed if we can't, our residents can't be trusted to, that would be where I would like to see it. Is I don't want to get rid of the amenity as a whole, but I think especially in that northern part, sounds like we're having a lot of issues.
So I guess maybe the question would be, are there holes where we don't have any issues?
Yeah.
It's not a problem having in there?
Like I said, I've only received 2 complaints this year. Last year, there was maybe 1 or 2 around, it was the whole one, and we moved the basket last year, and that's the only one I heard last year. And we were waiting to put up, so we just put up signs for this last summer. We were waiting to put signs up for the course, and then we got a concern. So I don't know that there's any perfect situation for the disc golf course in this area.
Maybe hole number 6 if there's nobody around
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
The only
there is a
thing-
dog over there that's not very happy.
The only thing
But-
is, this wasn't this was trails. These are
Yeah,
just
these
people
were
to
trails.
walk, bike, run, but some of them might be horse trails. I mean, that was the purpose of them, and so if this was an amenity that's causing problems for the people in the area instead of enhancing their areas, then why do we have it? Why are we spending any money putting up buckets or anything on it and just irritating? And the problem is, I think it's just exactly like Clint said, just because we're not getting calls does
Doesn't mean
not
it's
mean
not
that they're happy with it.
Absolutely.
I would bet if you went and interviewed all those people who live along there, they would all have something to say.
And I almost would say that removing a good section of it might give a wake-up call to some of our residents saying, look, if you can't use this responsibly, we can't justify continuing to provide this service. It is too big of a liability, in my opinion, to have something that we know is causing, property issues, property damage, just to.
It's safety concern.
It's just a safety concern for me. I don't want to see somebody get beat up or in a fight or a homeowner, for me, it's not worth it. And so I would love to see the amenity stay, but in any of these holes that are truly problems, I'm personally willing to say we should just get rid of.
Would you have to redesign the course if you removed a few holes?
No, we would just not.
They just have to walk
Just
farther.
They just play from the
Yeah, and I don't know if removing those first 5 holes will, if we're gonna remove the 5, we might as well just remove them all, because the rest of the people in that area are going to see that we removed the 5.
Right.
And they're gonna say, well, we want it out of our
So to say,
backyard
if there's some that aren't around any homes, if it's really just in the wide open trail,
But they're all
then
right
maybe you
next
keep a
to
couple
homes.
baskets in there, but
But
anything that borders homes, I agree with Wendy, that's exactly what will happen.
Well, I mean, frankly, I think if they see us remove it, they may start actually getting the information to the people who need to know it. If we're not hearing that it's a complaint, it's hard for us to say, but I think there's arguments on both sides.
I'd be curious to see what Nicole has to say about it, because just being through the prior discussion about this, at this point, my feeling is if it's still a problem, it's not worth it. It's not what this was intended for. The residents there, I think, have been extremely patient. If I lived along there and I walked out back to see a guy in my backyard, it would not be a pretty sight,
That's my fear.
I think at this point, we've gone through the process. We've we've given time to make adjustments, the residents have been patient, but now that it's coming back again, is the signal to me that this.
And honestly, I think that it shouldn't, any of those residents along there, one time is too many times.
Right.
So what's the direction?
I'll throw out there, I'm fine removing the entire course.
Okay.
Having it come back a second time, gone through the evaluation process initially, to me, that's the signal that, okay, it was a good experiment, it didn't work.
Having this been the first time that I've seen this, I would be hesitant to pull the trigger on the entire thing. I'm still willing to say let's get rid of this area that seems to be what we're hearing is the biggest issue, and seeing what happens. But or at least for this year, seeing what adjustments are made. But I'd have a hard time saying let's pull the whole thing right now.
Jerry?
Well, I just don't think that was the intent of the park system, and if it's causing a problem with private property owners who it was intended to benefit, then it needs to come out. My fear is if you pull the top half, just like was stated, these people are gonna be like, so those people are more important than we are, or what, I
And then
just
they come
think
and talk
it's
to us about it.
cause friction.
Obviously, I'm one of the ones that has been affected, and so I probably have a little bit of a skewed view. I honestly, would like to find a way to keep that amenity available in the cities, but again, I think that you have to design that into a space right off the get-go with that as the purpose in mind. And I think Jared verbalized it pretty well, is, we did the experiment, we've found some challenges with it, and again, as much as I would like to say, I don't use it regularly myself, hardly at all. But it's out my back door. But that being said, I think that the impact that some of these residents have experienced with it, I don't think it's fair to continue to put that on them.
Okay, so here's two nods to remove it and one to maybe modify. I wonder what it looked like you cut that to a 9-hole golf course, but it's just one end, and that's the problem. You make 18 courses, you put it back to the clubhouse, basically. And that's your most part.
Before
So you do fragment it, it doesn't work as well, and probably just, might as well just get rid of it.
I'll say that I'm willing to look at any adjustments, but I'll echo what was said. Even one more complaint is too many at this point. I think people have been really patient, so if we keep anything, I think we have to be pretty sure that it's not gonna cause a problem for anybody. It's gotta be in an area that is not adjacent to homes.
And we have a lot of cool areas that we could put that kind of thing that's not gonna be adjacent to homes, or that's not gonna
Not right yet, but we are requiring some areas we can put.
So,
Yeah.
one of the
Sure.
people that was kind of a pusher of this when we first put it in, I like disc golf, but I would recommend removing it all rather than keep a piece of it. Disc golfers, like regular golfers, have it's gonna be a less of amenity once you make it a 9 or any kind of smaller hole. So I think what would be a good process is let the people know that, hey, it didn't work out because of basically you guys who climb over fences and things. But then put the word out, we are looking to add this back at a future date if we can find property. So I don't think it's you suck, we're never gonna deal with you again. It's gonna be
Just a better location.
we're gonna find another spot. Cause I think the council, I heard all the council say they like this amenity just in the right spot.
Yeah.
I don't
So I
think
think we
the design actually works very well. It fragments to where it's not as viable as it is. And it doesn't matter if you golf or disc golf, it doesn't matter. You wanna play back to where you started. Because
Makes sense.
that's drawn outside and in. But that's part of the problem. Outside of people that are not conscientious to our private property owners. On a golf course, when you buy a golf course, you know what you're getting into. This was actually brought in after they built, so. It's
No, I think it's good.
Probably time to pull the trigger, save the baskets and.
Yeah, we can look at maybe the hillside up in the hills, doing something there,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, we'd like us to notice this though. Was it like cut off today, we start pulling that tomorrow?
We'll get through it.
I want the council to be aware of a timeline, because there'll be some people who complain, we'll take it out.
I would recommend that they that's the decision council's made, that within the next month, we be seeing action taken.
I would say
We just have to have
consult
our-
our communications expert.
Okay.
Good plan.
So,
Comes out. I agree with the mayor, the sooner the better, but.
It's
Well,
coming
and
up on the end
it's
of
a good time
summer.
anyway, it's the end of the season.
Yeah.
And so it just won't be available next.
Okay, that's really what
Even though they do play in the fall.
Just disappointing.
I can do it too.
You're absolutely awesome. Never wanna see something jump.
Can you do it in one?
Yeah, I think I can.
Very surprised to see me.
So we have, just a little bit over 10-12 minutes left, and so, discussion.
done in 2 minutes, she said.
Okay, fantastic, so we'll move on to 3.4, discussion related to potential regulation of the sale of animals.
So we received a request from the Humane Society, to ask us to look at adopting an ordinance that any future pet stores, because we don't have any now, would require,
Is this the same, I saw in our packet that this ordinance, is it already in place by Salt Lake County?
several other cities in the county, yeah, I think the Humane Society's been talking to all the municipalities about it and stuff. So you've got some examples, basically just says they can't sell puppies from puppy farms, they have to come from a shelter or rescue.
If it's already the law in the county, why are we addressing this? Is this just a show of support to say that we also agree?
doesn't cover it.
Yeah, the county wouldn't, yeah,
So,
so
okay,
we
so
need
that's
to
my
have it
question,
for us, so
this,
when we get a pet store in the
County
future,
services us, but they
we
don't,
require
their
it.
ordinances don't affect us on animals, so we have to.
on this, okay.
So it's really just a question of, that's what you want, and we'll bring back an ordinance for you to approve. To require pet stores to sell from shelters.
So I have some pretty strong feelings about it. I think that we don't have any business making an ordinance like that. I think that the law is simple as far as people who abuse animals. There's already laws on the book that say you can't do it. So if there's puppy mills out there, or whatever they wanna call them, there are laws that regulate the abuse of animals. And so I think that it's just an overreach to add another layer here. I have, on the ones that are adopted, it's puppies, cats, and rabbits. And I was like,
The other examples are,
this is pretty interesting. I have a nephew who raised rabbits for years, and that's how he helped fund some of his growing.
And this does not, it's responsible home breeders who are breeding at
No,
homes
but he
and all
was
that.
selling them to a pet
yeah.
store, and the pet store was selling them, and it's like, well, that was just a little entrepreneur kid that's trying to make money for his education. It's like, that's crazy. And so, I don't understand why, if you want to adopt an animal, does everyone know where you can go to adopt an animal? You can go to the Humane Society and adopt an animal? Yeah, most people do, or anybody who's looking to adopt an animal would. There are rescue places that you can type in rescue places and know that you can go rescue an animal. So I just think it's just an overreach for us to say, well, if you're a pet store, you can't sell a puppy. Unless you get it from the Humane Society, or unless you put it, and so it's silly.
See, and that's the part that, and correct me if I'm wrong, as I read it, it wasn't saying that a pet store could not sell animals. It was saying if they do, they have to be from a shelter.
Right.
Yeah, they have to source them from
To
there.
me,
Which,
is
are
an
there any other shelters than
to me is a little bit of an overreach, because there are a lot of if their true purpose is to try to limit puppy mills, well, there's already laws on the books that govern that, and there are a lot of responsible breeders out there that's punishing people that we shouldn't, to protect something that's already protected. Personally, I have a hard time connecting dots.
To me, it feels a little, with that, are there any other shelters besides the Humane Society in the state of Utah? So the Humane Society is asking us to come in and say, you have to force a company to use our product, basically, is what they're saying.
Exactly that way.
And we don't do that for any other business. So, while in principle, I absolutely agree that we should not abuse animals, and I think we are all on board with that.
Puppy mills are
Awful. There are already laws in the book, and I think this is an overreach at a city level for us to come in and say, if they want to go and work with the state legislature and deal with commercial, I would fully support them, and I would probably be willing to, say my 2 cents on that in support of it. But I just don't think that this is the right place for us to do it. I don't know, that's my 2 cents.
This was here at a request of the Humane Society, right? Not because
Correct.
we've
Humane
had,
Society
not
approached
because
the
we've
city
had an
about it.
issue that we
No,
feel like we
Humane
need to
Society
address
approached the
it.
city.
My understanding is that they're looking at different municipalities that don't have pet stores currently, as kind of a
I'm
preemptive.
sure, yeah.
Gotcha.
And I think that even like they say, even stores like PetSmart and Petco don't sell from puppy mills anyway either. I mean, they already have those policies in their stores,
Yeah.
so.
So I just think it's messing in areas we don't need it messing. I don't think that we should dictate you have to use the Humane Society if you want. Those are my feelings.
It's fine. I hear direction.
Puppy mills are bad.
Yes.
We love animals. I will accept an motion to adjourn our work meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
We need to come back in.
We're closed.
Motion to temporarily adjourn.
We come back to
Jackie
work or
wants me to
close?
say it.
We need to come back in.
Close. So we'll go.
Property is all we have. Property is all we have.
Is it just property?
Gordon, I think property is all we have.
Everything yet?
So we have.
Wait till you get home on your vacation.
We could just mention the lawsuit.
So I just got a message about, it was like, flash flood 170 people in their neighborhood. How's our city right now?